debt limit talks that appear to be stalled. So we've just been hearing from the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She is reiterating that the Treasury may run out of cash as soon as June the 1st. She says that we're already starting to see signs of stress in the financial markets. She's going to try and update Congress as soon as possible with a more precision on that timeline. That timeline, that X date, seems to be becoming a little bit more fluid. Kailey Leinz joins us now from Washington. Kailey, how much transparency are we really getting from the Treasury?
Well, the X date, I would say, Guy, has always been fluid. In each letter she has written to Congress, she has specifically said that it is potentially as early as June 1st, but that it could be days or weeks later. There has always been some murkiness in the timeline because the math just simply isn't perfect. The Treasury can't know exactly what receipts ultimately it is going to get on each day. It can only estimate a range and then look at the obligations that it is going to have due, which is why we do end up with this range and why some on Wall Street, for example, are saying that really it could be more like June 8th. That really is the drop dead run out of cash date. But again, it's not perfect. And clearly Republicans have kind of seized on the murkiness of this in recent days, calling into question whether or not June 1st should really be treated as a hard deadline, also questioning the transparency of the Treasury as to how they come to this date. And on the subject of transparency as well, the Treasury hasn't been abundantly clear about what actually happens within the department if we get to the X date and the debt ceiling hasn't been raised. We often talk about the idea of prioritization. Janet Yellen reiterating that they will have to default on some obligations post X date at this event she was speaking at, but not actually specifying what is and isn't possible after that time.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it feels like then if you say it, then it becomes more true kind of thing. But there's clearly like working papers and a plan like somewhere that was already being dusted off from 2011. In terms of, say, how she's talking to companies, so part of these headlines were also quite interesting, as in there's some stress in the financial markets, talking about, has she talked with banks or CEOs about what to do in the event of passing that X date? Are we learning any of those contingencies?
Well, she says that she's not involved in the planning on the part of banks and that she isn't involved in planning for market stress after the X date. There is a question of really what contingency planning is going on in the background, of course. But as recently as the interview she gave Bloomberg TV in Japan 2 Fridays ago, she said she hadn't actually discussed prioritization plans with President Biden. So there's a question of what really the work that really is going on. But what I have heard from former Treasury officials when kind of questioning why they aren't being more transparent about this, they've said, frankly, we can't actually know what happens post X date because it's never happened before. The U.S. has never defaulted on its debt. We're all just waiting to see if this time around may be different.